everybody. Welcome to this week's bike session hosted by Hacker Refactor. These meetings are intended to give you guys a chance to check off that professional development box on your list every single quarter and to give us an opportunity to learn and hear from industry professionals and teachers and learn a bunch of new stuff. So we're happy you're here. We're listening to Chris Coyer today talk about CodePen. I'm excited to hear more about it. Let's give him a warm welcome.
Woo! How's my levels? Fine. Yeah, right on. Thanks for having me and thanks for coming. That's pretty rad. I'm just a local Bend person, you know, like you all probably. And I could talk about web design and development. That's what I've done my whole career, which is pretty cool. I'm happy to get into any of that with you. I'm pretty into it. It's kind of not just my job, but it's kind of my thing. I really like it. I've talked about it forever, made my whole professional career out of it. But I also work on this app called CodePen, which we run right out of downtown, you know. I mean, it's people work there remotely, but you know, there's a couple of us right here in Bend. So, you know, kind of an example of a tech company making it. Kind of startup-y in scale, but we've been at it like 12 years. So, and we're profitable and doing just fine. So it might be kind of cool for some of you to hear somebody that like went through this thing at college and then turn tech into money later, you know, which is kind of the goal, I think, hopefully, or at least a fulfilling career. So I thought I could uniquely talk about that rather than just some web design tactic or something, you know, but happy to get into that stuff too. So, you know, oh, just a sec. Just pair to my phone. There's probably a password on the old OSU networks, huh? Not that we really need this, but yeah, whatever, there's me. And CodePen is the app that I work on, CodePen.io. It might be a little simplistic for some of you already. I'm sure you know, if you're deep into a web development or just, I don't know, general computer science degree, you probably don't think of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript as like the ultimate complicated thing you're going to learn and get out of this. But that's what I've kind of made my career out of. Front-end development's really swung back around as being pretty important part of the world. But CodePen is, I mentioned that because the point of CodePen is just writing HTML and CSS and JavaScript, you know? We call them pens. You make a little pen, you get HTML and CSS and JavaScript buckets. As you write, it's rendering what you're doing, and that's kind of it. So you'd think like, how hard could that be, you know? I think a relatively competent computer science student could whip that together in a week, maybe, you know? You take the values from 3 inputs and you smash them together into one HTML document and you shove it in an iframe on the page, and it's kind of true that that's not like definitely the world's hardest thing to do in the world, but actually it is. There's a million things to think about. From anything from not letting people do insecure crap, so security is like a huge thing because you put something on the internet, somebody's going to try to break it, hack it, whatever. To this day, it requires human intervention on a daily basis to make sure that the things that people are doing aren't horrible, essentially, because it's kind of public too. The point of doing this too is that it isn't 100% isolated to just you. You make one of these, hit save. By nature, the URL is public. Anybody can see it. It's also immediately search indexed. So if you're not by Google, but by us, you know, if you need to search for your own work or other people's work, that whole world is pretty complicated. And there's a bit of like a social dynamic to it. So like I follow you, you follow me, I can heart your stuff, you can heart my stuff. And then the front page of the site is kind of algorithmically, and there's some machine learning stuff involved too that kind of is showing you stuff that we think that you're going to like based on your other kind of interactions. Just interesting crap that people are building on CodePen. So every single thing in this site is just built from HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And what we're showing you is like popular stuff. You could go in there and type hello world and hit save, and it's probably not going to show up on the trending feed of CodePen. You know, that's just your personal stuff. But and then as you follow stuff, it's showing you stuff from there and showing stuff that your friends like and stuff. And that stuff is actually relatively complicated to pull off in the world of building websites. But anyway, I thought I would kind of, the hairy guy is hilarious. Ooh, I'm the first person to like it. What's up? That's a big deal. I went through a program just like this. I grew up in Wisconsin, ended up at University of Wisconsin-Whitewater, which is an offshoot of the bigger Madison campus, kind of, just like this is a little bit of an offshoot, I would call it, I guess. So yeah, Whitewater, it was fine, you know. This would be way better. I would be way into it if my classes were like, we're gonna actually build a website or something. Back then, which, you know, it wasn't that long ago, but about 20 years ago, was just way boringer, I thought. Yeah, I had to take classes in assembly, which I hated, and then we learned Java, which wasn't my favorite, but it wasn't like cool Android Java. It was like just, I don't know what Java. And you know, you could see my MacBook here. I've kind of long been a Mac dude, and I was forced to change systems. I didn't like that at the time, and there's lots of reasons why I wasn't that into it. It wasn't computer science. It was management computer systems. So there's some management crap we had to do, and I jammed my way through it, and I didn't love it, but I loved computers the whole time, which I thought was kind of the important thing. So in a way, I was like, I don't even care what we're doing there. I have my own trajectory, and I'm going to follow that. But by the very end of it, I just couldn't do it anymore, and I bailed, and I got a degree in art instead, and I had way more fun, but that was starting over from scratch, so it took me like 7.5 years to get out of there, and whatever. So your journey might be weird, but I had some like internal passion at the time. I'm like, things are gonna be fine, Mom, you know. It's gonna be great. Anyway, just quickly to show you my path, because it might be useful to know that paths can be windy and weird. I leave there thinking that, well, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but it'll be something, you know. I couldn't provably just roll into some computer job. And at the time it was like, there was a lot of like Y2K planning, which I don't know if you all remember, but it was kind of like banks are gonna crash because there's a bug or something that has to do with timestamps and crap. And there was a lot of people graduating and getting jobs at banks just being like looking for that crap and fixing code, which I was like, man, that would be traumatic. All of this passion I have for computers to do that as a job, bleh. So I wasn't that sad to not like immediately roll to like Wells Fargo or something after graduating. That would have maybe been fine. I couldn't find a job in computers at all. I ended up in the printing industry for a little while at a place that would just take print files, and we got them ready for press, and we let the press go. But I was a little excited about it because at least it was a computer job. At least it was a room full of Macs, because that was what powered that industry, and I was pretty into that. And just rolled with that for a while. I worked 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. though. It was a rough, straight through the night shift. I did that for a whole bunch of years. And then finally, just through having this job, would work with designers and stuff. Because a designer would design something and then send it to us to print, and I'd have to talk with them, because I'd be like, you forgot to pull the bleed on page 4 of this brochure or some crap. And you get to know the ones you like and the ones you don't. And this design company would send us crap all the time called Chapman Design in Madison. Turned out it was only 3 people, but they did a bunch of mostly print design work, catalogs and stuff for sporting companies. It was kind of fine, but it was also during a time when, if you're a design agency, your clients tended to be like, can you do some web stuff for us? Like, we have this catalog, can it be an e-commerce catalog too? And it wasn't as obvious as like just Shopify then or whatever. I don't know, you got this, you know. It was more hand-rolly at the time. And they had a web guy. One of the 3 of them had no idea what he was doing, but it was a web guy. And then they just bury you in clients. So we had like 15 sites that were all under this purview of these 3 people. And then the guy's like, bye, you know, which happens. Like, that's a thing. People leave jobs all the time. So they needed somebody right away, and I knew even less than he did, because I'm just fresh out of college. Nobody's ever been like, see this important production website? That's your problem now, you know? And that can happen right away. And it happened to me immediately, but I was like into it. I was like, boo, I got this, you know, this is my big chance. So I had a million websites that were under my thing. It was fun, but it was a little stressful. And at the time, I found the most fun thing was the CSS part, because I ended up getting that art degree, you remember, and I was like into the whole design aspects of building websites the most. I could do it all. I mean, I freaking had to, you know, but I liked that stuff the most. And I had this idea, it was like, you know, I was 20 something and living with with some dudes, and I was like, this job paid $26,000 a year. So it was, by my math, it was like just under McDonald's. It was like a bad job, you know, like I'm doing big website work for clients, and it just paid nothing, you know. I was like, I need something to augment this, you know. I'm out of college. I need to like be figuring out what's going on with my life. That is different than now. Like you roll out of this program and you're dedicated and you do a good job. You're good. It's gonna be better than $26,000 a year, believe me, you know. But just anything would have mattered. If I made $20 a week, you know, I used to like mow the yard of the apartment that I lived in because they gave me like $20 off their rent. I was like, there's got to be a better way to turn computer stuff into money. And I started like a bunch of different blogs and stuff because the idea was you can put ads on a blog. You just sign up for Google AdSense. They give you a snippet of code. You put it on the website. It shows ads. If anybody clicks it, you make some money. Sick. And, you know, it's not that hard to make $20 off an ad on the internet these days. You know, I thought that would be my path, perhaps, to a little extra bonus bucks. That was the early days of this website that I used to run called CSS Tricks. It was a cheesy name, but I really liked the CSS and design aspects of websites. So I just started blogging. Every day, just some little thing would come up at work, and I'd be like, hey, we used a Wufoo form at work to solve this thing for whatever, and this is how you style it, or this is a cool header technique, or this is how you make a triangle, or just some dumb thing. But I would write like every day, sometimes multiple times a day, and just hit published. And it had ads on it immediately, you know, just like let's slap some ads on there, you know. And it really didn't take long to start making like $20 a month kind of stuff. And then eventually companies would come to me and they're like, I'll pay you for your PayPal right now to put like a banner or some crap on a website. And the numbers were a lot better. And that was just in the first like year or two. And that website I ran it for about 15 years, just really slowly. I can even show you because I sold this thing, but they didn't turn off my Google Analytics to it. Can you see the launch in like 2007 back here up to when I sold it and they started ruining it in 2022, you know? Didn't end up super well, but, you know, peak it out about, you know, 10 million page views a month, just writing about web design crap and publishing on thing. By then, I had an editor, I had guest authors that I was paying and stuff, so the content was rolling a little bit more. But that kind of turned into a little career of its own that started to rival what I was doing just professionally and having a job and stuff. That's kind of cool. I noticed when I was looking at the new AdSense, I haven't used AdSense in a million years, but they have this little like, oh, I thought they did. There's some kind of like, how much money can you make slider that I thought was weirdly accurate. Yeah, oh well, whatever. If I can think of it later, we'll dig around and find it. But it was kind of like it matched my income pretty close towards the end there. And it starts out a little strong. They're like, you make 20,000 page views a month, you'll make like $8,000 a year or something. I'm like, no, you won't. That's ridiculous. But at the way high end of the slider, it was like 10 million page views, about $1 million a year. And I was like, whoa. We met and exceeded those expectations, which was great. So we did really good on that. And then DigitalOcean a couple years ago offered to buy it. And I was so busy with CodePen and running this, it was just, it was too much. So I sold it, and that was cool. And now I'm burden off my shoulders kind of thing. But to roll back a little bit, while I was writing, and writing's the greatest thing I ever did in my career, just writing down stuff, just being out there a little bit, content creation stuff, it opened every door for me along the way. It just was great. To have people to be able to see your thoughts online was crucial to me. And I would do little dumb stuff, like anything that I was a fan of, I would write about the company, you know? And if you write about some little company and some problem they're solving from you, you can bet, you know, it's hard to be like, Apple's so cool. Nobody cares at Apple. But if you write some little, you know, Supabase is cool, they're a great database company or whatever, they're gonna know, because somebody's watching, you know? I would write about this company, Wufoo, which is just some online form builder thing. It was like, oh, I need a form for my wedding. I need name, and I need a little drop down that says if you want chicken or steak, and whether you're bringing a +1 or not and stuff. You could do that, but you could make healthcare related forms, any form you want. You just drag and drop the stuff on there. I thought it was so cool. I was like, because I have 15 websites I'm doing for Chapman Design, They constantly needed forms of different kinds. Instead of it being this like, oh, here we go, I'm gonna write this up in PHP or whatever, it was just like, doop, de doop, de doop, here's your form, you know, and I looked great doing it. And then I would write like tricks and stuff you could do with Wufoo to style it to make it look more like your client's website or integrate it with a Google spreadsheet or whatever, just write stuff about them. They knew I was doing that. It so happens we run into each other at a conference and they offer me a job. And at the time, I was making $26,000 a year working at Chapman Design. I was like, I'll take it, you know? And they were cool too, because they were like 10 guys, they're in Florida. It was a chance to like get out and do something. I was like, I did it. I think I turned my job into, I'm like a tech guy now. I don't know what happened, but that felt pretty cool. So I had CSS Tricks, I was working at Wufoo just for a couple of years, but it was pretty formative for me because it was a big deal to be working for them on a real startup-y kind of product, and they got bought. So it was my first like feeling of just how much turmoil and stuff there is in tech. Stuff's constantly getting bought. You got to go work for somebody else. They got bought by this company called SurveyMonkey, which probably a lot I've heard of. It's a little bigger of a form builder kind of thing. You can do anything you could do on Wufoo on SurveyMonkey too. They're publicly traded though. It was a big deal. That happened later, but it's amazing to me that some survey company is so big and they're doing great. Anyway, so I had to go work for them for a little while, kind of mandatorily, you know, like you'd be stupid not to kind of thing, because they're offering stock and stuff. That was in Silicon Valley, so I put in my couple of years out there, and along the ways, I'm like making buddies at Wufoo, because we're friends there, because we were a small company. We came and formed our own little unit at SurveyMonkey. We were friends there, but it was a little bit of a downgrade, because it was like you had to go to work. That sucked, because we were used to remote stuff, and you know, remote's pretty common now, but it wasn't then, and we were really used to that. And there's just way more people and stuff. I wasn't into the vibe as much. And neither were my buddies that worked there either. And some of us were like, let's do something entrepreneurial then. You know, like we're young, we got ideas, let's try to spin up our own thing. Especially because it wasn't that risky, because I had CSS Tricks, that was doing okay. These guys had more stock than me, and SurveyMonkey, that was doing okay. So it wasn't as quite as like jump off the diving board risky to do it. So I had CSS Tricks, right? I have this blog that's just, you know, look at that. We wrote 8,000 articles for this thing. Like there's some need here. It's really a kind of a legit publication that I would like to show off stuff. You're like, how do you make a triangle in HTML and CSS? Well, I can show you with some blocks of HTML and CSS, and then what? And then a screenshot of what it looks like in the end. My idea was like, let's have it render right in there. Let's see the code, maybe even be able to edit the code, but like have this like interactive embeddable thing to put inside of blog posts is doing for CSS Tricks. And that, like I said, doesn't sound terribly complicated, right? A couple of text areas, you style them up, you render the result in an iframe, can't be so bad. And it really wasn't that bad. We had we hung out one weekend, some of these guys that were at SurveyMonkey with me, and got it together. I'm like, my goal is I just want this just for me. So just help me out for CSS Tricks. But then it was like, it made sense to spin it up at its own URL. We named it already CodePen. And then, you know, we're like, well, maybe it'll be open source, but there'll be like one canonical hosted version of it that's just at CodePen for people to play with. But when people make stuff, they need user accounts. So let's build in auth and have the whole account system and stuff. And then we'll just announce it and people can use it if they want to or whatever. And I'll have my account for CSS Tricks, and I'll do my own thing there. But it was cool, and there were so many people that like listened to me because of this site. There's already kind of a built-in audience that a lot of people started using CodePen right away. And we were like, well, that's kind of cool. And it was just free. It's, you know, not a big deal. But we had some money into it because you got to buy hosting. You got to, you know, it's all on AWS, whatever. So it cost a little bit of money. You'd be like, God, it'd be nice to pull some money back out of this. And it seems like this has a little bit of legs because one thing we did is make like a admin screen just for us that just showed us what people were building that day. When you don't even have that when you build an app for the first for your very first time, you're like, what should we, like, how can I observe what people are doing on my own website? So, and we're like, I wonder how popular these are. So we started tracking, just look at the dumb little Redis counter that would be like, at this URL, 1, you know, page loaded, increment counter, 2, you know, it was like the dumbest counter ever. It's probably still in there somewhere. I mean, the original code, it definitely is in there somewhere, because you can see like that one has 18 views. You know, that's still some little counter that's tracking that kind of stuff, which gives us some metadata into how popular something is. But then we added comments, and then we added hearts, and then there's a few other things, like even just observing a pen, as there's some kind of secret metadata that happens, which gives us an ability to kind of algorithmically calculate how popular something is, so that admin screen could become what is actually popular today on this site. And, you know, some version of that turned into these feeds, essentially, of cool stuff people are building. But then I was like, man, people are actually building cool stuff. Why should that be an admin screen? Why don't we make it the home page? You know, it's kind of a leap of like, yeah, that sounds like a decent idea. Then there's a reason to come to this site every single day. Great. And people are building stuff. They're proud of what they're doing. They're sharing it with people. They're finding their own little use cases of why this is useful to them. Because there is no like one story of why that's useful to anybody. I'm still not like 100% sure why anybody uses it. You know, like it's, I don't know, you just build little creations and you share them. It's not as clear as Wufoo was. Need form, buy form website, have form. This is much more ethereal or whatever. But we're like, we need to make some money. Let's add pro plans to the thing. Now you can pay us money and it'll unlock a couple of features just like every other website in the world, you know. And the things that we offer are pretty trivial, you know. At the time on GitHub, private repos were free or were paid, you know. They could be public, but you want to make it private, you got to upgrade. I think that's different now, but it was at the time. And so we just said, oh, we'll just have it be private. The pen just won't show up in the feed. It won't show up on your profile, won't show up on search. It's private to you, but you got to pay for it. To this day, that's our #1 selling feature, just a little bit of privacy, and you can pay us. And enough people do that, and enough time has gone by that, you know, people that decide that it's useful to them, that it pays our entire company, pretty much. We slap a little bit of ads on there, because the traffic is relatively high to the site that it's almost stupid not to, but those all go away when you're a pro plan too. So that's kind of the journey of from there to here. Obviously there's a few more steps along the way, but most of my professional career I've been just chugging away at making CodePen work. So maybe I'll take a breath here and see if anybody has any questions about any of all that. How it works, why? Yeah, what's up?
For like creative outlet or I don't know, anything surprising?
Oh, there's constantly surprising stuff. I mean, the quality level is surprising to me as a really simple one. Or somebody will build like a friggin' painting, just incredible work, or a game, or something I just never even dreamed of. We're seeing a bunch of VR examples and stuff now, so that's kind of cool. But truly surprising, we had some people get married that met on CodePen. That was kind of cool, that just saw each other's stuff and met in real life and did that. That was pretty rad. People get hired all the time because, you know, they're like, I don't even know who Carter Lovelace is really, but they have a pretty sweet profile actually. I'm following them, that's good. You can customize your profile and do interesting things on CodePen that way. So there's like a, you know, you're publicly available. You know, if somebody was looking to hire a great front-end developer, you could probably do worse than Carter. You know, I have no idea who Carter is, but clearly they know what they're doing a little bit. It becomes a little bit of a public showcase of what you can do, just like your public GitHub profile does, or your LinkedIn or something like that. It's not at that scale, certainly, but it is more niche, and it carries some positive signals specifically for front-end developers, because that's all you can do on CodePen. So that kind of thing is surprising to me, that it's useful to people in that kind of abstract way of like literally finding work. I can't promise anything, but it happens, you know. Dang, Carter's awesome. Look at that. That's cool. Yeah. Retro. I love it. We have like challenges we do every single week for people. It's kind of a small part of it, but it tends to attract people earlier in their journey of learning this stuff. So you might even know about it at all because you took some class or something and they used it in a way, and then you're like, oh, that's just that place that has the little demos and stuff. I don't know where I was going with that exactly, but that's the idea. You know, I have this friend in town that I play music with and stuff who he teaches culinary arts at the Cascade Middle School. So he just teaches cooking to kids. And he's like, wait, isn't CodePen your thing? Like, oh my God, for the last like 3 years, there's some URL we go to that like you click it and it like randomizes like appetizers, main dishes, and desserts or something. And all it is like an array of like a million like verbs and cooking nouns and stuff. And it just like plucks them out and says like, you know, roasted cherry sauce or something, you know? And he's like, that's your website? You're the randomized cooking website? I'm like, no. I've never seen that in my life. It's one of the over 100 million of these examples that are on CodePen, you know, like, and they're all public, they're all open source licensed and usable and stuff. So people find code. There's one where you like, it has something to do with like weighing weed and like how much of it, and that one is like you'll never see it a popular thing. It's not shared around, but it has like amazing SEO for some kind of drug thing, and it gets crazy traffic. That's why it's dumb not to have ads on it. There was one at one point that just counted how fast you could press the space bar, and that became like a phenomenon. And it's like for like tweens kind of thing. And we just got a crap load of traffic to it. And that's all you did was, you know, just tell you how fast you hit the space bar. But who knows? But I don't know. It's probably some subreddit it blew up on or something. You never know, you know. A little surprising what happens sometimes. Sometimes we're surprised by the just what bad stuff people do. Because again, it was just the Super Bowl. So there's a ton of like examples of like stream the Super Bowl here, spam. And it would take you to some shady website that was covered in ads or worse, you know. So we have to have systems in place to deal with that. Yeah.
Anything more malicious than spam, like anything that's trying to break out or anything successfully do that?
Yeah, especially in the early days, because you know, for one thing, we can run preprocessors. Like we used to run one called Haml. That was like some Ruby-based thing that turned a weird syntax into HTML, or even like what's still popular, Sass is like a CSS preprocessor. You have to take that code and then go process it and then bring back the results. And that go process it thing means that those are our servers that are running, and that's a target for anybody that they're like, if we could write anything or send a request to that server that could break out of that server and do who knows what. Bitcoin mining is a popular example and that kind of thing. They would try, and it's been our responsibility to deal with it. We haven't had any really terrible stuff happen because we just knew that would suck forever, you know? And fortunately, the tech has gotten better that we still have to be super careful, but that type of thing tends to happen in a Lambda, which is AWS's version of just running a really isolated piece of code that just has so little permissions that even if you were to kind of break out of the Lambda, you'd be like, well, this thing doesn't have any permissions anyway, so have at it, you know. I consider the phishing-ish stuff the worst, like somebody trying to replicate a Bank of America login or something and having it report passwords out and stuff. That's worse than spam, if you ask me. Spam is dangerous too, because if Google sees too much of it, you can take penalties in your SEO and stuff. And our traffic is important. That's our top of funnel customer acquisition thing. So if our SEO were to tank, that would be bad for us. But phishing is even worse because that messes with people's lives, you know. And then, of course, worse than that is like anything that's like porny. That's not great. You got to watch that stuff. But our systems are pretty good for it. There's all kinds of them. There's as simple as just here's a blacklist of crap, which can be kind of nice. During the Super Bowl, you might as well just put Super Bowl on it. You know, like that would be a too strong of a keyword for day-to-day usage. But during that time, it's like, I don't even want to go there. And it does things in different ways. Like if your account is less than 24 hours old, you come to CodePen and make a pen that says Super Bowl in it, we just turn you off, you know? It's pretty subtle. It just kind of removes you from the ecosystem. It prevents you from doing a few things. It flags you for review in our system. If you're me or whatever, if you're an account that's 10 years old on CodePen, it's fine, you know? Like you've earned your trust over that amount of time. But there's ones that, you know, it'll take a picture of what you do, you know, we send that to a screenshot service. That's useful. So if somebody shares it on social media or whatever, the preview image is that, which is automatically done and it's nice. But then you can take that image and you can send it through analysis to make sure nothing gross is happening to the image, which is kind of cool. And then there's just an ML model too, that every time you hit this is a bad one, it's learning slowly, well, yeah, what is a bad one? You're like, I don't know, that one, you know, which is nice because it means our training is low effort.
While you were, as the product grew, like, did you run into any growing pains, or because you're on AWS, was it like not that big of a deal?
No, there's all kinds of pain. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the very classic obvious pain is just like, oh, the website's down because of traffic or something. And the way around that is generally like your hardware is not good enough. You need scaling and stuff. And you just don't get that stuff for free. AWS wants to help you with that. Of course they do, but like it doesn't mean that you just like press the scaling button. You know, somebody's got to write code and stuff to deal with that. So that was quite the journey. Now it's got, you know, this is all fancy as hell now, but like it can auto scale to the point of like, oh, it's getting busy, spin up 3 more. Oh, it's getting, crucially, oh, it's getting slow. Let's spin down those same 3 because you're paying for that as you're doing it, which is nice. The biggest pain was it was probably about a year we were hit pretty good with just random DDoS stuff, which is that thing where somebody points their network of computers at your website and it just hammers your servers till they go down, and it's very hard to deal with, you know, because you can't just be like, oh, that traffic's coming from this IP, blocked, you know, like that's the whole point is it's distributed, it's unblockable in that way, it's hard to predict and stuff. I don't have a technological solution for it. The solution is get behind Cloudflare and pay their enterprise bill as soon as you can, because that just stops it in its tracks, because that's what they make their part of their business offering. So that's what it took. Unfortunately, it took money, which not everybody has, you know. It's not like I'm like super happy to pay that bill every month, but we haven't had a problem since. And you can watch it. It can be some Tuesday night and it'd be just like some chart with some gnarly ass DDoS on it, and the site was fine. You know, during that year it was not fine, you know. And it could even be hard to come back from, because the way that the servers would die, you know, this took a while to learn, but you'd spin one back up and all the traffic would flood to that one and it would kill it before more could come on and split the load. So we had to time it such that like blocks of them would come on at once so that they could deal with it while others were spinning up. It was it was a pain in the ass. Just for a website that puts HTML and CSS and JavaScript in an iframe, you know? Like the stakes are low, but we're high for us. It's our job, you know? Yeah, right on. I'm glad you're all interested in this aspect of it. I was hoping it'd be at least a little interesting. People do cool stuff on there. Maybe I can show you one of the painting things. I wonder how up to Ben Evans. Sometimes they crash your browser because they're just nuts. Ooh. Come on, Arc. That's just not an image. It's all little individual HTML elements and CSS styling it. Just little shadows and curves, and there's no SVG in there or anything. Woo! That's really insane. There's no reason for it to exist, but it's just art in a cool sense, you know. And I do get a kick out of it when people complain about it, because you're like, yeah, you go ahead and whine about it. I'm sure Ben is doing just fine. You know what I mean? So it's been nice. It's nice to own your own spot. I have a co-founder. We share the load. It's been fun to work on. We're working on a big 2.0 that's been years in the making, but it's kind of fun. It's fun to work on that, knowing that your core product is fine. So there's nothing, it's stressful in its own special ways, but not in a way that like, what are we gonna do? We're gonna die, you know? I'm going skiing in the morning, and I don't even tell anybody. So that's pretty cool. Got that dream going, yeah.
It sounds like you've built several projects,
Mm-hmm.
products. Do you have any words of wisdom when it comes to thinking about how you're choosing your mentors or your community or the people you surround yourself with, and like then who you approach to? Like, how did you find your co-builder partner?
Right. Well, that was part of that journey, you know, when I was invited to come work at Wufoo, which was so cool. You know, they kind of chose me, but they chose me they knew that I was useful to them as a fan and kind of evangelist already going into it, and I had some skills to be useful to them. But there was also like a kind of a culture fit thing, because there wasn't that many of them, so they're kind of cautious about who they hired and stuff. And we all went and like hung out. We like went to a movie and stuff. A little like unconventional of a hiring process, but I could tell that they took that question pretty seriously, you know. And we all got along fine, and I ended up working there and making friends. I worked there for years, and we were tight just because you end up being friends with the people you work with to some degree, but they're good lifelong friends, you know. I'm in Bend now because one of those dudes moved to Bend, and I was like, that town looks sweet. I'll move there with you, you know. And Alex, who's my co-founder now, was one of those guys. And then we all moved together out to Silicon Valley. We lived on the same street because we were just young, and we could make choices like that seemed fun at the time, and it was fun. So we were like, you know, we slowly found each other through work and knowing that we worked together well. But I do like that question. It's important to, yeah, those are big choices, you know. You can't just snap your fingers and have the perfect co-founder, you know. Hopefully he is, you know, he definitely is. He's way, way smarter than me and better at so much stuff, but it's super like you're married. If you've ever heard that little metaphor before about how important that is, I probably spend more time with Alex than my wife. Ooh, is this going on YouTube? You know? No, she knows well enough, you know. But yeah, it means you're gonna go at it sometimes, for sure, you know.
It's okay to get like 0 views.
This one's blown up though.
Yeah, no pressure. We're gonna build our entire budget around all of the money that we get from the views on this video.
Views. It's going big. Yeah.
How did you decide what you were going to include in your 2.0 product or what you're not going to include in your 2.0 product?
Oh, fortunately, it was relatively easy. The easy part was so many people just got a bit, like I even think I opened up here talking about, probably not a lot of you have like a ton of utility for CodePen. Maybe a little bit, I think it's kind of fun. It certainly is a way to practice playing with new school CSS or new JavaScript APIs or that kind of thing. But professionally, it's probably not like a major part of your tool set. And that was kind of bummed me out. Like nobody's like building their personal home page on CodePen, really. We took a stab at that one time that's what a project is called, which was kind of our crack at like, what if a file browser, more like an actual code editor, you can make as many files as you need and folders and stuff, and it's more like real web development. This product is okay, but is very limited in what it can do. And it always bummed me out because there's people that like, they use CodePen for a little bit and then they're like, there's this clear moment where they have to bail and continue on with their journey using other tools and whatever. And I'm like, what if they didn't have to stop so soon? that you could build a legit professional website using CodePen and just leave it on CodePen, and that we could serve that. We could provide the hosting, and we could provide using bigger tools to do stuff. Like static site generators are really big. There's a whole world of people that build their websites just using a static site generator. That's a good fit for a product like this. We'll run your SSG in here, turn all your markdown files into your whole website or whatever, run your blog, run your marketing site or whatever. And this product you can deploy. So you just click a button and we give you a website that you can DNS to a domain that you own or something like that. But like I said, it's so kind of limited in what you can do. You can't run a static site generator on this. There's just a handful of technologies you can use on this. None of them are particularly modern or useful for that kind of thing. And that bums me out. So the idea is there's this bigger concept that there's constantly some new JavaScript framework or new site builder or new native technology, something like the world of tech is it's absolutely guaranteed to truck forward. There's going to be new stuff. And the kind of the CodePen editor of old is, we're like, okay, so you want to write CSS, right? Which language do you want to use? Less, Sass, Stylus? Do you want to use Post-CSS? There's a few of these, but notice that list isn't 20 long or whatever. Each of those is its own little kind of ecosystem that requires us to build technology. It's not like that's impossible to extend. We could extend that fine. But we wanted to kind of rethink the system such that oh, there's a new technology that just came out because I saw it on Hacker News or whatever. We'll build that as a little component and we'll ship it, and now CodePen is supporting it tomorrow. We want to get to that fast development cycle that the CodePen of tomorrow can support anything just and quickly. So I don't really have a good demo of that, but we're in alpha. Hey, yeah.
Why does it take so much time to add a new language to? It seems like you just download an interpreter for language and put it on the website.
Yeah, it doesn't take that long. It's not that particularly difficult. Some of the challenges can be in how they combine with each other. So if you're going to be I'm going to use Next. Next is a popular framework for React, and I also want to use Sass or something. I want those two things, but I'm going to write in TypeScript too or whatever. At some point, configuration kind of starts to become your enemy as you pick more and more technologies to piece together, and that's a little bit challenging, and we want to be as helpful as we can with that. And also the number of languages that are just a box where you put some code in and it gives you some code out the other side of the box are starting to be less in vogue. It's more popular to have a complete file system and you run a CLI and it's watching your files. It's just more of it's not a spaghetti machine or something like Sass is. This is just really clear. You just write red is red and my body is background with my variable red. We take that string, we run it through the spaghetti factory, out comes that string, and we put it on your website, That's less common, Next.js isn't like that. Next.js isn't give me a string and I'll give you a different string. It's I'm going to give you an entire file system and configuration and stuff, and out the other side comes an entire dist folder of all kinds of stuff, That's a little bit more of what a processor has come to mean. And this was more architected more in the string to string processing kind of thing. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever struggle with burnout, and how did you work past it?
Great question. I know so many people that have, being in the industry for so long, people just get tired and leave or something. I always thought an interesting one that, because I haven't really, so I feel a little weird speaking to it because whatever, I haven't quite lived it. But it's this ability to affect change at what you're doing. And then if you worked really hard and you felt like you were fighting uphill forever and you never got anything done, that can be one of the recipes for burnout. And fortunately, because I've always run my own spot, when it was CSS Tricks, it was just me. It's CodePen. I have a co-founder, but I'm at the top. I'm steering the ship. I'm affecting great change in my community. That it's still exciting to me. Like I haven't experienced burnout because I don't think I'm immune to it, but I think it's fun enough and that I can affect change that I avoid it that way. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about incorporating like an AI tool where you can just give it blank English and it can help you actually write your code?
Yeah. Certainly that's what everybody wants right now,
Yeah.
the chatbot kind of thing. There is kind of like limited stuff in here, isn't there? Look, there you go. It has kind of like the Copilot-y kind of suggestible stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of a browser plugin kind of thing at the moment, but that's awfully useful. You can be like rainbow background, so it's not a chat bot, but you can kind of prompt it in that way and be like, okay, oops, didn't do anything good. Try harder. For real.
Love chatbots.
There it is. Look at that. Hell yeah. You know, so it's prompted a little bit to know that. We didn't write that.
Yeah.
In this case, we're using Codium, which I think is a pretty sweet one, really.
Is it an AI?
Yeah. Yes. That's what they would say.
Sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really, I'm kind of hoping to sit back long enough that this stuff is so commoditized that I can be like, pay some company who's VC'd out the guts to be like, yeah, I'll pay you $20 for amazing AI integration on my website. Thanks, Like, it's a whole world of innovation and stuff. Ride that train if you can. There's probably people in this room that will get rich on AI somehow, but I'm too tired. I want to ride the end of the wave of that one where I just get to use the cool stuff that other people build. There's some cool potential, though. In a new CodePen, when we're processing much more advanced stuff, we have a lot of logs. So like you're working on your Next.js site. That's a technology we want to support because there's lots of people that build websites with Next. It's super nice. That's how we build CodePen. Might as well dog food it a little bit. But like you do something wrong in your config and it throws an error, and we have log information for that. It seems to me like good fodder for AI stuff. Like 25 other people had those logs, and what they did to fix it was this piece of config. Like that's like more interesting to me than this little like suggestive stuff here is like what moments where you can actually fix something that's like gut-wrenchingly wrong with your site. Be like, oh, I see what you did there, dummy. It's not just a syntax error. It's like something deeper than that. And we know, because we have a ton of data analyzing this. That would be nice. That's just a dream, though. I don't know if we'll get to that stuff. We'll see. Certainly cool. All right, y'all. Thanks for coming to the CodePen show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.